empowering cross-cultural dialogue through fashion. In collaboration with Dr Reem El Mutwalli from the Zay Initiative. In Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
Hi everyone, Nicoletta Morales with Culture Focus magazine. I'm very excited today because we have a very special guest, Dr Reem El Mutwalli. She's the founder of the Zay Initiative. And she's an author with great cultural experience with over 40 years, but I want her to tell us more. So Dr. Reem, very happy to have you. Will you share with us, why did you find the Zay Initiative? What does the Zay Initiative focus on for those of us that are not familiar with it?
Let me thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me today. This is lovely. And I'm very excited to be talking to you. This is a subject that's very important passion of mine, I'm very passionate about this subject, so I could speak for hours. So you need to stop me every now and then and put me back in track, otherwise we'll be here forever. So to begin with, let me explain what is the meaning of the term Zay. In Arabic, the term Zay is the art of dress, costume, and general attire of a country or an era. And that's why we chose the name. It encompasses most of the work that we are involved in. Now, the Zay Initiative is a non-profit UK registered initiative advancing the preservation of cultural heritage through the collection, documentation, and digital archiving of Arab historical attire and their stories. Our goal is to empower and sustain global cross-cultural dialogue to inspire creative minds. So this is in a nutshell what we are. I hope I gave a small introduction to this.
That was amazing. Yes, you did. And what I love about the Zay Initiative is that it's trying to bridge the gap between the misconceptions that some have towards the Emirati and Arab fashion in general and the true meaning of this amazing fashion. So can you tell me some of the misconceptions that exist out there and how the Zay Initiative is trying to bridge that gap?
Yes. First and foremost, I need to maybe explain that one of the main misconceptions that we have as far as our world is concerned is that, first of all, the Arab world is composed of the Arab nation, or sometimes they call it, or the Arab Ummah. It consists of about 22 countries and a very large span geographically. They are united together by the Arabic language, their culture, and some geographical boundaries. Yet, they are sort of individual also. They share many similarities, and they have their own particular culture to themselves, you know. People outside this realm tend to box everyone into one small box, while we are a much larger, how can I say, much larger interwoven fabric of different ethnicities, cultural backgrounds, and so on and so forth. That's one of the misconceptions. The other one, which is widely spread, is that, and needs to be clarified, not all Arabs are Muslims, and not all Muslims are Arabs. You have from those two overlapping or overarching cultures or backgrounds. One is a religion, the other one is an ethnicity. So we have in the Arab world different religions, different ethnicities. And in the wider Islamic world, there are Arabs and there are non-Arabs that are Muslim. And again, these two lines tend to blur or tend to be misconceived by a lot of people. These are the main and general points that I wanted to point out. Now, when you ask me, how does the Zay work on, changing misconceptions? This is the general misconception that you have, but you have other ones that are specifically related to women, to their especially their dress, and so on and so forth. And I think through the Zay Initiative, what we do is we sort of shine a light on these aspects in order for people who are interested to get to know more about it and to get to understand it based on academic and factual information that we record and we preserve.
Speaking of preservation, you have 180 different outfits from different centuries of that females in the royal family were wearing. So how did you get to collect all this amazing historical fashion? And what's the difference of that fashion that you've seen throughout the years? And I believe it's called Abaya Collection.
Actually, I wanted to correct two issues here, since we are correcting things. First of all, it is the abaya is one form of article of clothing that is worn in the Arab world in general, mainly in the Gulf states and also worn by Bedouin Arabs. It's an overgarment, a public cloak that is worn by men and women. When it is worn by men, it's called a bisht. So it's one form, it's one article of clothing. It is not the article of clothing by Arab and Muslim people, because it varies. For example, the abaya is called a chador in Iran, which is a Muslim country rather than an Arab one. And in some areas, they don't even wear it anymore because it's part of the folkloric dress of that country, and so on and so forth. But that is one thing. So, and the other point that I wanted to clarify as well is that we have, I mean, I'm so delighted to be able to say that we started with about 180 pieces. And today, within the past 2 years, we amassed 1,350 articles of clothing.
Wow, that's incredible.
And it's really wonderful. And the reason we have amassed so many is because, and I credit it actually to mass media. We are living at a time which is really fascinating, when all people are complaining, or many people do complain about the negative effects of social media and how it's used and how it is affecting us. In our case, it has been a blessing in disguise, because what happened is, through our Instagram accounts, social media accounts, and so on and so forth, people began to recognize us and understand the objectives that we have, and connect with us, reach out to us very fast and in real time. When I was studying and researching, it used to take me months to find a book, let alone to find the reference, to be able to quote and to compare and to look at, or even locate a person, you know, and you have to go from one place to the other to find this information. Today, it is within your fingertips, you know, you can get to it very fast. It might not be the correct one. Mm-hmm. So one has to make sure that you are, you know, you compare it and you do study it and you do references and go back to the old references that one has. But at the same time, it gave us a connection, a direct connection with people. And because through our collecting, what we do, or the twist that we have to the collection, is the fact, and I think we came to this realization by chance, because I wanted to keep the collection alive. I wanted it to be to help sustain tradition, to help sustain culture, and to take it to the future. So it needed to be reachable, tangible, reachable by many across countries and across different fields. This technology that we have today, this internet, this virtual world that we are living in, has allowed us to connect with people, and they send us their items because they want to keep the memory of their loved ones alive. So they found in us a vessel where they can place an old garment that would be thrown away and nobody would ever think about it. Now it is featured on a digital archive, and it has the details, it has the history, and it has the name and a little brief about the person who used to wear it. So if I want to keep the memory of my grandmother, I hurry up and I send a piece of her clothing. And this is what happened. So people started sending us their mother's dress, their grandmother's wedding dress, their father's abaya cloak, their grandfather's ring, and so on and so forth. And with each piece that came to us came a story. And with each story, we have managed to preserve a voice from the past that could have disappeared, you know, but it will stay even after our presence, because it will be there, as you know, with this sort of technology. And that is what captured the interest of so many people to get involved, because they feel that they are part of the, we call it sustaining the legacy.
That's incredible. I mean, it's this collective initiative from all over the world, thanks to social media. And it's definitely a privilege in today's world to be able to do that. And it makes it easier for everyone to get involved. And speaking of a story, what is the story of the Emirati clothing and fashion, particularly for women?
Oh, it's a very long story. Each country warrants an interview, I guess, and a whole session together. And I hope this will open up a window to this collaboration between us. And I hope we will be able to talk about it more and more. But I'm going to use my sort of commercial, they call it, hat now, and try and push everyone and encourage everyone to go to the site in order to explore it on their own and look at the items that are there and read about them and understand them. And there are articles of clothing, as I said, we are compiling it from most of the Arab countries. So not only the UAE, the strength of the collection, the physical collection that we've got is from the UAE, because I happen to have lived in the UAE, you know, throughout my life, and I happen to have collected them. Also, the UAE is a young, aspiring country. The history is quite contemporary, and you have a distinct line between life before and after the oil, and to collect the information from this particular country was a very important aspect, because it was just being done. And I happened to be there by luck, and I happened to have experienced it and grown within that community and collected these pieces. I can't, you know, claim that I was visionary and I started collecting. I just happened to be here. Luck was on my side. I grew up in an area where I was part and parcel of the everyday life as it was changing here. And I happened to practice wearing many of these clothes and using them, and I collected them. When it came time for me to do my higher degree, my PhD, I looked around and I decided this is a subject matter that was not approached before. The female realm is a very difficult realm to enter and to understand. I grew up within it, so it was very important as part of my social responsibility to give back to the community that I grew up in. So I decided this would be the best way and to use my knowledge, to use my experience, to use my tools to document and preserve this. So I went back and I started looking at the pieces that I had amassed through sheer practice and function, you know, and look at the gaps and try and fill them in. And I began to research and I began to look for that, and slowly I managed to create that collection, which was published. So luckily it is the only and the first published collection that belongs to the UAE. And that's how it came about. When I started working on that, I realized that we don't have anything related to the rest of the Arab countries. There are individual collections in different Arab countries, and there are formidable women who have walked this path ahead of me. We have Widat Qawar, who is in Palestine and who has the best collection of Palestinian traditional dress. We have Shahira Mehris in Egypt, who has a huge collection of Egyptian articles of clothing and adornment, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to put all these women, bring them under one umbrella and try and, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I believe in teamwork and collaborative work. And I wanted to honor these women by bringing them together and by having a platform where their names will continue and where their names will be together, where they can maybe hopefully interact with each other. Now they all accepted to be our advisors, and if you go to our website, you will see a whole list of them. We have so far 17 of these amazing ladies, trailblazing ladies, and they've done so much work in this field. I hope that we can shed light and introduce people to them and to their collection, and eventually maybe I can convince them to put all of these together one way or the other, so that we would be able to preserve them and keep the legacy as we go on.
Absolutely. And in this, what's interesting to me, and your ability to collect and your knowledge is your background, because you were Iraqi by nationality, you were born, I believe you were raised in the UAE, and then you had education in London. So you're very international and cultural, and you have
Yes.
these amazing connections with the royal family, and you were able to see everything firsthand. So tell us about that.
Well, I guess I am a result of the present times, where I think we are all heading toward global citizenship, you know. So many of us are no longer living in their birthplace. Circumstances and life is changing so fast. If anything we learn from what COVID has brought us is that our future is very much tied with each other, and we need to understand that boundaries should not separate us in one way, you know, in some form or the other. And yes, I was born in Iraq. I grew up in the United Arab Emirates. My father was invited by the late founder of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, as the economic consultant to the then Crown Prince, who is today the President of the United Arab Emirates. This allowed me a privileged life where I grew up among the ruling family. And as I said to you, I experienced wearing these clothes. So from an academic and a researcher point of view, I had first knowledge as to how these clothings were used and how they were made and how they were experienced and so on and so forth. So it was innate in me, rather than writing about some people that you have met for the first time, or you are researching, or you are reading about in a book of some sort, you know. So that was the advantage of the issue, the situation. And then I had to study. I had to go to boarding school at the age of 10 to UK, to England. So I experienced that kind of life. And from there, my parents plucked me and sent me to Midwest America, which was a completely different experience altogether. But it was a lovely experience because I got to be exposed to what I call true America, that beautiful, hardworking, decent, fair, compassionate type of Americans that you find in the Midwest. And I have forged friendships that are lasting to date with me, you know, throughout my university degree. And then from there, I went back to UK to do my master's and my PhD. Now, as I say, pre-COVID, I live between Montreal, which is my native now. I am a native of Montreal, and Canada, so I hold a Canadian passport. As you know, most of Arabs, the Arabs at the moment, due to the circumstances and the diaspora and the situation all around the world, we all carry different passports to the ones that we were born into. So Canada has been my home and my truly supportive country. So I live between Montreal, Boston, London, and UAE. So seasonally, I think it's lucky. Seasonally, I move between all these four points, cities, which are, one is more beautiful than the other. And of course, barring the issue with COVID nowadays. So I think maybe this has helped me focus my attention on the fact that I would look at what brings us all together rather than what separates us. And through this Zay Initiative and fashion itself, dress, clothing, these are elements that intrigue everyone. And they are so beautiful. Whether you understand it or don't, everybody wears clothing. You know, we all experience it on one level or the other. So I think through this medium, one can learn so much about not only an individual taste and individual style, but you can learn about the economy, the religion, the politics, the culture, the trends. All of these elements can be surmised through one article of clothing. And I think that's very intriguing.
Absolutely. And what's very intriguing to me is you're a global citizen, you're an expert, you have all this experience. So learning from you firsthand is completely incredible. And as someone who is interested in fashion, and also a lot of our followers and readers, we would love to know if you can share a little bit of, you know, the story behind some of the outfits, for example, for casual workplace outfit, or then diplomatic, and then royal. I mean, what are some elements that are different? Because we see the beautiful scarves, we see the beautiful clothing, but we don't know what it means and how different is it. I know you can educate us for hours, but something briefly that we can.
But again, keep in mind that we are speaking about a number of countries, so each one of them has its own particular type of style and
on the Emirati, the UAE.
Okay. And the other thing is, I encourage you again to join our webinars, because our webinars that take place every 2 weeks, it's open to the public and you can register through our website. They take these topics that you were just asking about, and they we pick one aspect of it and we talk about it, and we bring in experts in these fields in order to have a dialogue between them. It speaks to this cross-cultural interaction, as well as it identifies these articles to the general public. So it works very well. And tomorrow, actually, we are holding our upcoming one of our upcoming webinars, and it is with a wonderful, wonderful British artist who has lived in the United Arab Emirates and is inspired in her work by the clothing and the female life and culture in the UAE. And I really encourage everyone to go and sign up and join us, because it is such a wonderful cross-cultural interaction between fashion and art, rather than between another culture, one culture and the other. Although, again, if you look at her as a non-Arab, being inspired by Arab traditions, again, you have a cross-cultural interaction there. And the way she translates so much of what we are doing academically and in a dry way, in a way, factually, and we're putting the information down for people. But here's this woman that takes it and creates a piece of art that takes us into another dimension of interaction and experience. She uses scent, she uses elements that are from the surrounding in order to express herself, and it's really beautifully done. So I'm sorry, I went into a tangent and I started talking about, I told you I will do that. So coming back.
I'm absolutely loving it, and I'm sure that our viewers are loving it as well. And I want to know more in terms of what are some particular Emirati elements that are being used in the clothing, colors, textures that are very specific to this region.
Well, let me take you to one article of clothing, and I think it is an iconic one because it is the one that is most visual. And when we spoke, you called it an abaya. So let's talk about the abaya. As I said, the abaya itself is a cloak. It's an overgarment, and it's an overgarment that is shared by men and women. Of course, they have different fabrics and different varieties. It varies between a woman's aba to a man's aba. But, and as I said, when it is a male, it's worn by the male, it's called a bisht in some areas. And generally, it used to be a very square shape, almost simple shaped garment. It's basically a folded piece of fabric, so that it creates an area where you can hold it on your shoulder, and then it has two holes where your hands would go through, and it creates this overall cloak that one can wear to protect oneself from the elements. Remember, most of these people who wore the aba lived as a non-sedentary life. They moved from one place to the other. They needed this sort of coverage to help them from shield them from the dust, wind, sun, and so on and so forth. And which is very interesting, actually, that when you go back and research a lot of these articles of clothing, you find out that they are really functional. They are based on functionality, and function did dictate how they are used. And I will illustrate it because as it evolved, as we moved from a non-sedentary Bedouin life to a more urbanized life, and then eventually to a very modern sort of life. And now we are facing even this globalization sort of atmosphere. The abaya itself evolved with it. And what happened was that instead of being worn on the head and being this shapeless square type of cloak that engulfs the whole body, when women started going to school and going to university, they could not read, but write using such a garment. They could not, eventually when computers came in, you cannot use the computer and the keyboard when you are wearing such a garment. So they adapted it into a robe format. So it changed, it continued to carry some of the elements, for example, the color, let's say, and the fact that it covers the full body to help conceal it. But it acquired now arms, just like a robe. So you would wear it almost like a coat or a robe. And it helped you function in your daily life, in your everyday life. Remember, as I said earlier, this is a public form of clothing. This is something that women would wear when they are in public. And it acts as a form of concealment and in order to help them abide by their religious norms. As you know, in Islamic rule, most of these women in this area are Muslim, so they and most of them still practice Islamic guidelines. So this gives them this ability to be in public, to go about doing the work that they want to do, reaching the aspirations that they have, but at the same time they stay upholding their culture and their religious teachings, you know. So they adapted it into what they need, and it became something that you wear on your shoulder, so then your head became exposed. So they had to create another article of clothing that covers and wraps around the head in order to cover the hair, again in accordance to Islamic teachings, you know, and modesty and so on and so forth. So you have it changing, and then when the cars came about and women began to drive, again, this worked very well. It functioned well because these women could not drive wearing that bulky, huge piece of fabric that could get caught in everything that, you know, on your wheel and so on and so forth. So it shows you how function dictates the change in this. Today, these young ladies now, or the new generation, are beginning to experiment yet in another, you know, taking it further, one more step or more steps. And they are beginning to experience how they can stylize it, how they can create an article of clothing that helps show their national identity, you know, show who they are, where they come from, how proud they are of their national identity. And two, because it's a public attire, and because it's something that is worn publicly, you know that when you meet someone, or when we go anywhere, we get up in the morning and we dress up, and we want to say something in our clothing. If I'm going to the office, I want to show that I am professional, correct? If I am going to a party, I want to show that I have style. If I am going to see my mother, I want to show that I am abiding by the cultural and social norms, because usually mothers would criticize, you know, what you're wearing, no matter what you do, anyways, in all cultures. So what we wear, consciously or unconsciously, reflects so many symbols and signs within us, within our personal personality, and within our culture. So again, the abaya became a medium that can show I have taste, I am trendy, I am contemporary, I am modern, but yet I still uphold my identity, and I uphold my religious beliefs, and so on and so forth. So they began to introduce designs, colors, styles. They began to see, remember, we are now exposed to the whole world. It's no longer a closed society. Communication allows us and the, you know, technology allows us to learn from outside, and, you know, have a larger reach, and also to learn from outside. So it's a two-way relationship. And through this same medium, the abaya, which is used for concealment and for protection, or from the elements and so on and so forth, we can also say many more things. And these young girls are using that, which is wonderful and very, very, very inspiring.
That's amazing, because it's not just fashion, it's just, there's a story. They're using it as means of platform to send messages, or and I was at one of your webinars where you were discussing how in the past they used to burn the clothes and give the silver to their brother or their father, and I thought that was incredible. There's a purpose to that fashion. It's not just something that you put on like most of us here do in the Western culture, but it's just like a fairy tale almost fashion.
Yes, yes.
And it's just completely incredible that there's something we can all learn from, and understand
Yes.
that you could dress up with a purpose.
Yes, and it's really surprising to many that these women in the past, they really knew what they were doing. You know, they had a purpose. They were very we speak of recycling today, and we speak about sustainable outcomes and so on and so forth. These women practiced it by naturally, without thinking about it. They, first of all, they recycled their clothing. They never threw anything away. Pieces of it, if it got worn out, they would cut the good pieces and use them as gussets or as decorative elements within a new piece of our garment. As you just said, they embroidered or they adorned their clothing with silver or with gold because they needed to be practical. They were moving from one area to the other. So in a way, they carried their bank on themselves, but they made use of it. They didn't just carry it in a bag and wrap it on their waist or something of the sort. They used it to adorn their clothing, to make it look better, to make themselves. And vanity is always there, no matter what we do. Somewhere it is embedded within our psyche. So we always want to look beautiful. We want to look presentable, and we want to show who we are, what we are. Give an inkling. Now, I mean, today we wear Signet glasses, or we carry handbags that have a label or a brand. This was their form, by putting a coin that is a gold coin, or embroidering pearls on their clothing or something of the sort. That's their way of doing what we are doing today. So we are not much different. It's just the medium is changing, sort of,
Yes, the technicality. And speaking of technicality changing, I was also very intrigued by the mask, which I can't remember the name of, but that I found was it could moisturize the face, and it had different meanings when you wore it as a girl that wasn't married and a girl that's married. So can you tell us more about that mask, and hopefully you'll send us some pictures that the audience can see what I'm talking about. Not right now, but later.
Yes.
We'll include that in here. But
so the mask. First of all, I'm very happy that I see that you've been following. That makes me it delights me so much that you are following and you remembered all of these elements. One, two. The mask is called a burqa, and yes, it's again another one of these iconic pieces that many layers of misconceptions sit behind it, if we want to use the metaphor. And I wanted to explain through what we've been collecting and so on and so forth and showing is that these face masks really had a role. They had a function. Yes, they might have other connotations, but in general, they do have a function. Even today, when many of these ladies wear it, it gives them, and this is very controversial, it gives them some sort of empowerment, because this woman, if she is in a society that it's difficult for her to move, by putting this cover, she can do what she wants. She can go out. It gives her empowerment without having to be exposed to others. So we use it in a different way. Those who would wear a mask because of cultural and religious aspects, it helps empower them rather than the opposite direction. That's not to say that there aren't any obstacles and issues that we need to address and we need to look into and we need to develop. Every society has these obstacles when it comes to women. And we struggle with them the way other women struggle with them in other countries, just like they do. And we need to solve them. But I think when one looks at this article of clothing, I would encourage people to look into the other applications of it and balance what they are looking at and understand it,
I'm really glad you brought the issue of empowerment, because I believe some of the other misconceptions that exist out there is the oppression of the Emirati women, that they're wearing this veil, as form of silence or as form of just
subjugation.
Exactly. So now you're giving us a different perspective, and that's great to know that there's other ways of feeling empowered, and fashion can help us feel empowered. And if you can also tell me how the community gets involved in order to help, and even the Zay
Yes.
Initiative to help give voice and empowerment to the Emirati women. And
Well, yes, I think the UAE is a very special case because from the time of the founding father, Sheikh Zayed, till today, it has been on a trajectory to give women their rights, to push them into their society, to help them find their position alongside the male. The vision is that we complement each other rather than compete with each other. We look at it in a format that empowers the whole society, rather one group against another group. And we see women as they complement men rather than they compete with them. And the objective of the ruling family here has always been that we live in a special time where there is wealth and opportunity, and they would love to empower the whole society. And you can't empower society without empowering both male and female aspects of it, because they are half of society. Now, from a Zay perspective, what we did is, which I think will illustrate this sort of empowerment, is we worked in the past year on an exhibition whereby we took 20, because we are in 2020 and we were hoping that we would show it in 2020. Sadly, we haven't, but we're still working on trying to get it out there. We took 20 women and we took 20 outfits from our collection. We took these women, we chose these women from various aspects and walks of life. These women that are leading in one form or the other, and they are trailblazers, they are ambitious, they are strong, they are trying to forge their way forward and build this country together with their partners, male partners. And what we did is we photographed them in their field of work, but with the dresses or with the outfits and articles of clothing of these women who've passed away, who are no longer there, to show this connection between past and present and future, and how that your culture, your background, your heritage can empower you to go forward, to move forward. So, and funny enough, one of our candidates is an engineer in the space center here in Dubai, and to photograph her in her traditional clothing that came from women that she never met or saw or knew. She learned about them when we placed those dresses on her to photograph her with satellites and moon, and now we have Mars. That is the aspiration that encompasses the UAE. I think speaks to this notion that you were asking me about and illustrates it beautifully. Now, what we did is we because of COVID, we decided to change our plans like everybody has. And what we did is we created modules, and again, we based them on the idea of, in the UAE, when a young woman gets married, she is sent with a dowry. And the dowry is usually presented to her by the husband, by the male family, and it is usually carried in trunks, old trunks. You know, usually they were in wood, but today there are all sorts of different designs. So we created one out of a plexiglass, and so that it is transparent. And we've created this module where we will have the portrait of this trailblazing woman. And on the other side of it, we will have the articles of clothing and the description and details of these women that came before her. These women who enabled her to get to where she is. And what we did is we are going to have them either displayed in one country, but we're creating a treasure hunt so that we can combine this technology with the virtual world with real world. And what we hope to do is to create a sort of pop-up exhibition where every now and then you will see these trunks with this presentation, either in a different location or a different space according to the map that we will create, either in the UAE or even in the world. So we can send them across the world, and people who follow us will have to guess where they are and how they are moving, and maybe follow it through the social media and show others, and find this treasure hunt, or maybe do it in one specific country. So we're still playing with this, but we're trying to incorporate. As you see, life has changed so much after COVID that you need to come up with ways that you can tie all these together and weave them into a presentation that it will be accessible to as many people as possible within the confines that we all are living in.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you mentioned all of this and what you're working on. It just sounds incredible. And also that you mentioned about the astronaut, because from what I've read, there were over 1,400 applicants from the Emirati women to be astronauts, and that's incredible, and that's out of 4,000. So that's a big number, and there was one that was accepted to be in the program, and that's such a big step in the future for women, Emirati women, and it's a great example. It's a great example even for the rest of us to follow.
Yes.
And so, what do you think lies in the future for these women? Do you think that do you see more progress happening? Do you see more changes happening?
The wonderful thing about the Emirates is the fact that I don't need to see the future. It is already there. We are working so hard. The community here, the administration, the government, the individuals, they are on a trajectory to accomplish, and they are really, we have Expo coming this coming year, and we have other plans that are happening all around, and it's happening so fast that you could sort of touch the future today. And yes, of course, these women will want to participate, and you have this number. I am not surprised, because society, as well as the administration, as well as the situation that we are living in, is all encouraging and trying to push women to have their role and have their place within their society and within their culture. So why not take advantage of it? Women have always dreamt of this sort of opportunity, and now when it is available and it can be attained, they are going to stop. Nothing is going to stop them. Of course they will want to go on, and you will see, if you look at universities, if you look at higher degrees and higher education, you will see a much higher percentage of women attaining these positions and these degrees. And they are really working hard to fulfill their own aspirations. So it is very encouraging, and it is not surprising. And by the way, also through the Zay Initiative, we are beginning to have, as you know, you follow the webinars, but the UAE has been so eager to participate and support what we are doing. And now we have a series of webinars that are conducted with such UAE women that are in diplomatic corps. And we had one with Roda Latiba from the UAE mission in London just 2 weeks ago. And that was our pilot. And we are carrying this kind of dialogue in parallel to the webinars that we are doing. It's more work for us, but we are happy to do it, because it will showcase these women who are not even in their own country. They are no longer, I mean, in my lifetime, those women could not come out of their homes, the culture did not allow them to do that. And today they are going abroad, and they are representing their countries in different spaces and geographical locations and so on and so forth. So we'll be meeting with those in order to spotlight the work that they are doing and sort of give you the answers that you are asking for.
Well, that sounds so incredible, and I'm so looking forward to it. I know we're almost running out of time, but I just wanted to thank you for all of the great information, for being here with us and opening the dialogue and bringing awareness to these amazing things that are happening. And thank you for your work that you're doing and bridging the gap and, you know, facing those misconceptions and just breaking them down. And just out of curiosity, will the Zay Initiative be at the World Expo next year? Are there plans for you to be there?
We are at the moment we work as an advisory on an advisory capacity with the certain parts of Expo, and we are in negotiation in order to see how we can help and be part of it and develop that. Yes, so we are involved, but I leave it until next year, and then we have another talk about all of that. And I wanted on my end to thank you. Thank you for giving us this platform and the exposure. We are a non-profit organization, and we are not a governmental institution, and we are not a large institution. Most of the people who work with me are volunteers and work on very small margins. So to us, it is very important, and I reach out to your audience who would be inspired by what we are doing and would like to support us, to go to our website, to help us. There are many ways that people can help, either by donating articles of loved ones, or by helping fund certain projects that we have, or by interning with us, or by giving us their expertise. And I really encourage people to connect with us through our social media portals and become involved in what we are doing. And thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity, because every little will help, you know, and will go a long way for us to achieve this mission.
Best of luck to you. Again, incredible time talking to you, and I look forward to the next time we'll have a conversation as well.
Thank you very much again, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, I guess, in the webinar.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thanks, you too.
The Zay Initiative presents this fabulous Burgu' Riyasi Bunyum. This presidential face mask was specially created in 1999 by Sheikh Hamda bint Muhammad Al Nahyan and gifted to the founder of the Zay Initiative, Dr Reem El Mutwalli. The overall shape of the face mask follows the Yasi style, in direct reference to Yas tribe. The fabric is dyed using indigo, found in grades of bluish to purple, which is then rubbed and burnished to produce a metallic luster. The indigo would dye the skin of the wearer blue. For this reason, since the 1980s, masking tape and laterally prefabricated adhesive plastic sheets are placed on the back to protect the skin. The face mask's 18-karat gold embellishments are hand-sewn. The top line is composed of 23 round discs that resemble stars and are thus known as niyum or nujum. They are followed by another line of larger discs known as huruf. The burgu' is fastened to the head using a braided golden metallic cord known as shubuch. This represents a physical example of the traditional Arabic saying zina wa khazina, meaning beauty and wealth in one. The gold was employed to demonstrate style and reflect social status, but could also be melted down and sold in times of need. The Zay Initiative, an ode to the past, a nod to the future, a collection of Arab dress and adornment, celebrating human narrative.